The numbers on my phone glowed 3:19 in the morning when I heard it. A sound so broken, so utterly destroyed, that it cut through the silence of my penthouse like a blade through silk. I'd been awake anyway, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a glass of scotch warming in my hand. Sleep had become a luxury I could no longer afford. Not with the bratva closing in, not with the weight of an empire resting on my shoulders, but that sound, that shattered sob echoing from the hallway outside my door. It made everything else fade into insignificance. I set down my glass with deliberate care, the crystal making no sound against the marble side table. My hand moved instinctively to the gun holstered at my back as I approached the door. In my world, 3:19 in the morning meant nothing good. It meant betrayal or bloodshed or both. I opened the door to find her, Isabella Romano, my underboss Marco's little sister, the one person in our organization who was supposed to be untouchable, protected, kept far away from the darkness that consumed the rest of us. She was crumpled against the wall opposite my door, her knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold the pieces together. Her long dark hair fell in waves around her face, hiding her features, but I could see her shoulders shaking with the force of her crying. For a moment I simply stood there, frozen. Isabella wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to even know where I lived. Marco had kept her separate from our world, enrolled in art school uptown, set her up in a nice apartment in a safe neighborhood, paid for everything so she'd never have to ask questions about where the money came from. She was 23 years old, and as far as I knew, believed her brother was a successful import-export businessman. "Isabella," I said, my voice rougher than intended. She flinched at the sound of my voice, her head snapping up. Even in the dim hallway lighting, I could see her face was streaked with tears, mascara running in dark rivers down her cheeks. Her eyes, those impossibly dark eyes that I'd tried not to notice at Marco's wedding 2 years ago, were red and swollen and filled with a pain so profound it made something in my chest constrict. "Mr. Dante," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." The use of my formal name felt wrong coming from her lips. I'd always been Dante to the family, but Marco had insisted on the distance, the formality, where his sister was concerned. Another wall to keep her separate, to keep her safe. I glanced down the hallway, checking for threats, for witnesses, for any sign of what had brought her here. The corridor was empty, silent, except for her ragged breathing. "Come inside," I said, stepping back from the doorway. It wasn't a request. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the open door of my penthouse, then back to me. Whatever had brought her here at 3:19 in the morning had to be serious enough to overcome whatever warnings Marco had surely given her about men like me. She unfolded herself from the floor with shaking limbs, and I noticed for the first time what she was wearing. A thin cotton dress, summer weight despite the October chill, and no jacket. Her feet were bare, the soles dirty from walking. No purse, no phone visible. She'd run, from something or someone. The implications made my blood run cold. I closed the door behind her, engaging the locks out of habit. She stood in the center of my living room, looking small and lost among the expensive furniture and cold modern art. I'd decorated this place for intimidation, for power, not for comfort. Looking at her now, I realized how sterile it all seemed. "Sit," I gestured to the leather sofa. "I'll get you something to drink." She sank onto the sofa, still hugging herself, still shaking. I poured 2 fingers of brandy into a glass, knowing she probably didn't drink, but also knowing she needed something to stop the trembling. When I handed it to her, our fingers brushed. Hers were ice cold. "Drink," I ordered, more gently this time. She obeyed, taking a small sip and grimacing at the burn. But she took another sip, then another, and gradually some color returned to her pale cheeks. I remained standing, maintaining distance even though every instinct I had was screaming at me to do something, to fix whatever had broken this beautiful, innocent girl. "Does Marco know you're here?" I asked, pulling out my phone. She shook her head violently, panic flashing across her face. "No, please don't call him. Please, Mr. Dante. I can't. He can't know." The desperation in her voice gave me pause. My finger hovered over Marco's contact. He was my underboss, my right hand, my most trusted man. If his sister was in trouble, he needed to know, but something in her eyes stopped me. "Tell me what happened," I said instead, pocketing the phone. "Tell me why you're here, at my door, at 3 in the morning. She took another shaky sip of brandy, then set the glass down on the coffee table with trembling hands. When she finally looked up at me, The devastation in her eyes nearly brought me to my knees. "I know," she whispered. "I know what Marco does. I know what you all do." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. This was what Marco had feared most, what he'd spent years protecting her from. Not the violence itself, but the knowledge of it. The loss of innocence that came with understanding the truth. "How?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral even as my mind raced through possibilities. Had someone told her? Had she seen something she shouldn't have? She laughed, a broken sound that held no humor. "I've known for months. I'm not stupid, Mr. Dante. The money, the way Marco's friends all defer to him, the way he comes home with bruised knuckles and tells me he hurt himself at the gym, the phone calls he takes in the other room. I've known. I didn't want to admit it." I sat down finally, not beside her but in the armchair across from the sofa. This conversation required careful handling. If Marco found out she knew, found out I'd been the one she came to, it could fracture everything we'd built. "Knowing and understanding are different things," I said carefully. "What you think you know about your brother." She cut me off, her voice suddenly sharp, despite the tears still streaming down her face. "He kills people. You both do. All of you. It's not import-export. It's murder and drugs and God knows what else." The bluntness of it was jarring. Most people danced around the reality of what we did, used euphemisms, pretended they didn't understand the blood on our hands. Isabella had no such delusions. "If you've known for months," I said slowly, "then why are you here now? Why tonight?" She pulled her knees back up to her chest, making herself small again. "Because tonight I learned something else, something worse." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Tonight I learned that the man I was supposed to marry next month is one of you too. And he's not marrying me because he loves me. He's marrying me because it's a business arrangement with Marco." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Robert Castellano. Marco had been thrilled when Isabella had started dating him 6 months ago. A good match, he'd said. Successful, stable, from a respectable family. What Marco hadn't mentioned, what I'd assumed Isabella didn't know, was that Robert was our connection to the Castellano family operations in New Jersey. The engagement had been expedient, strategic, a way to cement an alliance. "How did you find out?" I asked, though I could already guess. She wiped at her tears with the back of her hand, smearing the mascara further. "I went to surprise him at his apartment. I had a key. He was on the phone with Marco. I heard them talking about the wedding, about how once we were married, the Northern Territories would be united under," she struggled with the words, "under the Romano-Castellano partnership." She looked at me with such betrayal in her eyes that I had to look away. "I'm not a person to them. I'm a business asset, a pawn to be moved around on a chessboard. Robert doesn't love me. He barely even likes me. But Marco promised him I'd make a good wife, obedient and naive and useful." The bitterness in her voice was cutting. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that her brother loved her, that everything he'd done had been to protect her, but I couldn't lie to her. Not when she was looking at me with those devastated eyes, seeking truth in a world built on deception. "Your brother loves you," I said instead. "Everything he's done, keeping you separate from our world, providing for you, it's all been because he wants better for you than what we have. That doesn't make it right," she whispered. "That doesn't make it hurt less." "No," I agreed. "It doesn't." The silence stretched between us. Outside, the city continued its sleepless existence, unaware of the quiet devastation happening in my penthouse. "I should call Marco," I said finally. "He's probably worried sick." Her hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. "Please," she begged. "Please don't. Not yet. I need a few hours to figure out what to do. If you call him now, he'll just try to convince me that this is for the best, that Robert is a good man, that I should be grateful for the life he's given me." She was right. That's exactly what Marco would do. I looked down at where her hand gripped my wrist, her fingers pale against my tanned skin. I should pull away, should maintain the distance Marco had insisted upon, should call him immediately and let him handle his own family crisis. But I didn't. Instead, I turned my hand over, lacing my fingers with hers, and said the words that would change everything. "Stay, just for tonight. You can figure out what to do in the morning." The relief that flooded her face was immediate. She sagged back against the sofa, still holding my hand, as if it were a lifeline in a stormy sea. "Thank you," she breathed. I extracted my hand gently and stood. "There's a guest room down the hall, second door on the right. You can shower, rest, whatever you need. I'll have some clothes brought up for you." She stood too, wavering slightly on her feet, the brandy and exhaustion catching up to her. "Mr. Dante," she started. "Dante," I corrected. "Just Dante." A ghost of a smile flickered across her face. Dante, she said, and the way my name sounded in her voice did something dangerous to my resolve. Thank you for not treating me like I'm fragile, for not lying to me. I'm a lot of things, Isabella, I said quietly, but I've never been good at lying to people who matter. I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. She mattered. When had that happened? When had Marco's little sister become someone who mattered to me beyond her utility as a peace offering to another family? She studied my face for a long moment, and I wondered what she saw there. Did she see the monster her brother had always warned her about? The man with blood on his hands and darkness in his soul? Or did she see what I sometimes glimpsed in the mirror, the ghost of who I might have been in another life? "Good night, Dante," she finally said, then patted down the hallway on her bare feet toward the guest room. I stood there long after I heard the door close, staring at nothing, my mind racing. This was dangerous, not just because she was Marco's sister, not just because she was engaged to another man, but because of what I'd felt when our hands touched. Recognition, understanding, connection. I returned to my position by the windows, but the scotch I poured tasted like ash in my mouth. Somewhere in the city, Marco was probably sleeping peacefully, unaware that his carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing, unaware that his sister had learned the truth, unaware that she was here, in my home, seeking shelter from the storm he'd created. My phone buzzed. A message from Marco. Meeting tomorrow at 10. The Volkov situation needs handling. Business as usual. The Empire demanding attention. I typed back a confirmation, then stood there with the phone in my hand, staring at Marco's contact information. One call. That's all it would take to fix this, to hand the problem back to its rightful owner. But I didn't make the call. Instead, I walked down the hallway to the guest room, standing outside the closed door, listening to the sound of running water from the shower. I should go back to my room. Should leave her alone. Should absolutely not be standing here like some lovesick teenager outside the door of a woman who was completely forbidden to me. The water shut off. I heard movement inside the room, soft footsteps, the rustle of fabric. I should move, should walk away, should do anything except continue standing here like a fool. The door opened. Isabella stood there in one of my shirts she must have found in the closet, the white fabric drowning her small frame, falling to mid-thigh. Her hair was wet, hanging in dark ropes around her shoulders. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, making her look younger, more vulnerable. She wasn't surprised to see me, almost as if she'd known I'd be there. "I couldn't sleep," she said quietly. "I keep thinking about everything, about all the lies, about Robert, about Marco, about how my entire life has been a carefully managed fiction. I understand lies," I said. "I've built an empire on them." She leaned against the doorframe, her dark eyes studying me. "But you don't lie to yourself, do you? That's the difference between you and Marco. He actually believes he's protecting me by keeping me in the dark. You'd be honest about the darkness." I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an accusation. "Most people are happier with the lies," I said. "Truth has a way of destroying things." "Like you said earlier," she replied. "You've never been good at lying to people who matter." She took a step toward me. I held my ground even though every instinct was screaming warnings. "So tell me the truth, Dante. Tell me who you really are. Not the legend. Not the monster Marco has probably warned me about. You." The question was dangerous, the answer even more so. But she'd asked for truth, and I'd promised not to lie. "I'm a man who has done terrible things for what I believed were good reasons," I said. "I've killed people, destroyed lives, built an empire on fear and blood. I'm not redeemable. I'm not fixable. And I'm absolutely not someone you should be standing this close to at 3:47 in the morning." She took another step closer. Our bodies were inches apart now. I could smell the scent of my soap on her skin, could see the pulse fluttering in her throat. "And yet," she whispered, "you're the only person who's been honest with me, the only one who didn't try to feed me comfortable lies. That makes you more trustworthy than my own brother." The mention of Marco should have stopped me, should have reminded me of every reason this couldn't happen. But then she said something that destroyed every wall I'd built. "I think I've been in love with you since Marco's wedding," she breathed. "When you toasted the bride and groom, and I saw something in your eyes. Sadness, maybe. Loneliness. Like you were watching something beautiful you knew you'd never have. I thought about you every day for 2 years. Told myself I was being stupid, that you probably didn't even remember I existed. And then when Robert proposed, I said yes because I thought maybe I could forget you. Could move on with my life. But I couldn't. The confession hung between us, terrifying in its honesty. This was the moment to stop this, to step back, to call Marco and fix this before it went too far. Instead, I reached out and cupped her face in my hands, tilting her head up to meet my gaze. "I remember you," I said roughly. I remember everything about that wedding. The light blue dress you wore. The way you laughed at your brother's speech. The way you looked at me once across the reception hall and I had to leave before I did something stupid. I've thought about you every day too, Isabella, and I've hated myself for it. Because you're Marco's sister. Because you're engaged. Because you deserve so much better than a man like me. Then let me decide what I deserve, she whispered. Let me make my own choices for once. And she kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, as if she was afraid I'd push her away. I should have. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to stop this, to be the bigger man, to think about the consequences. But then her hands slid up my chest, her fingers curling into my shirt, and rational thought disappeared. I kissed her back with all the longing I'd suppressed for 2 years, all the nights I'd thought about her, all the times I'd seen her photo in Marco's office and forced myself to look away. She tasted like brandy and tears, and something sweet I couldn't name. Her body pressed against mine, soft and warm and perfect. This was wrong on every level. Betrayal of my underboss, theft of another man's fiancé, corruption of the one innocent thing left in our dark world. But in that moment, with Isabella in my arms, her lips moving against mine, I didn't care. We stumbled backward into the guest room, mouths never breaking contact. I kicked the door closed behind us, my hands tangling in her wet hair. She made a small sound against my lips, half gasp, half moan, and it undid me completely. I pulled back, breathing hard, my forehead resting against hers. We need to stop, I said, even as my hands betrayed me by pulling her closer. We need to think about this. We've done nothing but think for 2 years, she countered. I'm tired of thinking, tired of being the good girl, tired of letting other people make decisions for me. I want this. I want you. God help me. I wanted her too, more than I'd wanted anything in my carefully controlled life. So I stopped thinking, stopped being rational, stopped being the Dante Corleone who calculated every move and considered every consequence. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I let myself just feel. The night blurred into sensation, her skin under my hands, her sighs in my ear, the way she said my name like a prayer and a curse combined. We came together like storm fronts colliding, all passion and desperation and a hunger that had been denied too long. Afterward, she lay in my arms, her head on my chest, her fingers tracing idle patterns on my skin. The room was dark, except for the city lights filtering through the curtains. The clock read 4:37 in the morning. Everything has changed, she whispered. We can't go back from this. No, I agreed. We can't. What happens now? She asked, tilting her head to look up at me. Now, I said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Now we deal with the consequences, starting with Marco. Her body tensed against mine. He'll kill you. He'll think you took advantage of me. Maybe I did, I said honestly. You came to me vulnerable, and I— No, she interrupted, propping herself up on one elbow. Don't do that. Don't diminish what this is by pretending it was just about opportunity. We both know this has been building for 2 years. I kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her hair. You're right, but Marco won't see it that way. He'll see his boss sleeping with his little sister. He'll see betrayal. Then we make him understand, she said, with a determination that made me love her even more. We tell him the truth, all of it, about Robert, about the arrangement, about me knowing what you all really do. If you enjoyed this story so far, please don't forget to like and subscribe to see what happens when Marco discovers the truth about Dante and Isabella. Will their love survive the wrath of the Romano family? Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. He'll try to separate us, I warned. He'll say I'm too dangerous for you, which is true. Let him try, she said fiercely. I'm done being protected from reality. I'm done being a pawn. If I'm going to be part of this family, really part of it, then I want to be part of it on my own terms. The conviction in her voice stirred something in me. This wasn't the naive girl Marco had tried to keep in the dark. This was a woman who'd had her eyes opened and chosen to walk into the darkness anyway. We should sleep, I said. We'll need our strength for what's coming. She settled back against me, her breathing gradually slowing. Just before she drifted off, she murmured, "Thank you for catching me when I fell." I held her tighter, staring at the ceiling, knowing sleep wouldn't come for me. In a few hours I'd have to face Marco, would have to tell my underboss and best friend that I'd betrayed him in the worst possible way, would have to watch our partnership, possibly our entire organization, fracture because I couldn't keep my hands off his sister. But as I looked down at Isabella sleeping peacefully in my arms, her face relaxed for the first time since I'd found her crying in my hallway, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Some things were worth the cost. Some people were worth burning the world for. I just hoped we'd survive the fire I'd started. Dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Isabella stirred in my arms, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment she looked disoriented, then memory flooded back and she smiled, a real smile that transformed her entire face. "Good morning," she whispered. "Morning," I replied, brushing my lips against her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," she admitted. "Hopeful. Terrified. All at the same time." "That's reasonable," I said. "What we're about to do, it's not going to be easy." "I know." She sat up, the sheet falling to her waist. "When do we tell him?" "The meeting is at 10. I glanced at the clock. 6:17 now. We could call him, ask him to come here early, or we could wait until after the meeting." She shook her head. "No more waiting. No more secrets. We call him now." Her courage humbled me. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, pulling up Marco's contact. My finger hovered over the call button. "Last chance to back out," I said. "We could end this now. Tell him you stayed in the guest room. Nothing happened. We could protect what we have." She covered my hand with hers. "I don't want protection anymore, Dante. I want truth, even if it hurts." I made the call. Marco answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. "Dante, what's wrong?" "Nobody calls at 6:20 unless there's a problem." "We need to talk," I said. "Can you come to my place?" "Now." There was a pause. "This about the Volkov situation?" "No." I met Isabella's eyes. "This is about your sister." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then, in a voice I'd never heard from him before, tight and dangerous, "What about my sister?" "She's here," I said. "She's safe, but we need to talk. All three of us." "I'm on my way," Marco said. "And Dante, if you've hurt her in any way." The line went dead. I set the phone down, my stomach churning. Isabella squeezed my hand. "It'll be okay," she said, though I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Will it?" I asked. "I know Marco. Known him for 15 years. This could destroy everything we've built. Then we build something new," she replied. "Something honest." We got dressed quickly. Isabella in clothes I'd had sent up earlier. A simple dress, jeans, nothing that screamed she'd spent the night. Not that it would matter. Marco would know the moment he saw us together. The way we looked at each other would betray everything. I made coffee, strong and black, keeping my hands busy while we waited. Isabella sat at the kitchen island, her fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the marble countertop. "Tell me about him," she said suddenly. "About Marco. About who he is when I'm not around." I leaned against the counter, cradling my coffee mug. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," she said. "If we're doing this, if we're being honest, then I want to know the truth about my brother, not the version he shows me. Marco is," I chose my words carefully, "one of the most loyal men I've ever known. When he gives his word, it's binding. When he loves someone, it's absolute. That's why he's so protective of you. You're the only good thing in his life. And me?" she asked quietly. "Where do I fit in the truth?" "You're his redemption," I said. "He does terrible things, Isabella. We both do. But he does them believing that if he can give you a better life, a clean life, then maybe it's all worth something. Maybe he's not just a monster." Her eyes welled with tears. "I never asked him to carry that." "I know," I said gently. "But that doesn't change what you mean to him." The intercom buzzed. "Marco." My stomach tightened. I pressed the button to allow him up, then looked at Isabella. "You sure about this?" She nodded, standing up and moving to my side. "Together." "Together." I agreed. The elevator opened directly into my penthouse. Marco stepped out, and I saw the exact moment he registered Isabella's presence. His face went through a rapid succession of emotions. Relief, confusion, then slowly, terribly understanding. He looked at her, then at me, then back at her, the pieces clicking into place. His hand moved to the gun at his back. "Dante," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Step away from my sister." "Marco," Isabella said, moving closer to me instead of away. "Please listen. Stay out of this, Bella." Marco snapped, his eyes never leaving mine. "Dante, I'm going to ask you one more time. Step away from her." "No," I said quietly. "I'm not going to do that." His gun was in his hand before I could blink. For 15 years we'd stood side by side. 15 years of trust and brotherhood and shared blood. All of it disintegrating in the space of a heartbeat. You slept with her. It wasn't a question. The truth was written all over both of us. "Yes," I said. "I'm not going to lie to you, Marco. Not about this. You son of a..." Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. Isabella stepped in front of me. "Marco, no," she shouted. "This isn't what you think. Get out of the way, Bella." Marco's gun hand was shaking now. "You don't understand what he is. What he does. I know exactly what he is, Isabella shot back. I know what you both are. I've known for months, Marco. The gun lowered slightly. What? The money? The business? All of it? I'm not a child anymore. I haven't been for a long time. You just wanted to keep treating me like one. Marco's face went pale. You know, about all of it, she confirmed. About the killing, the drugs, the territorial wars.
About how you arranged my engagement to Robert Castellano like I was a prize cow being sold to strengthen an alliance. Marco's eyes flew to mine. You told her. No, Isabella answered before I could. I figured it out myself. And Robert confirmed it last night when I overheard him talking to you about the Northern Territories and how our marriage would cement the partnership. Marco holstered his gun, running both hands through his hair. Bella, I was trying to protect you. From this, he gestured around the room. From him. From the life that would destroy you. You were trying to control me, she corrected. There's a difference. By lying to me. By treating me like I was too fragile to handle the truth. By selling me off to a man who doesn't love me so you could expand your empire. I did what I thought was best. Marco's voice broke. Everything I've done has been to give you a better life. At what cost? Isabella demanded. My freedom. My choices. My right to know the truth about my own life. She took a shaky breath. I love Dante. I have for 2 years. And he loves me. This isn't some impulsive mistake. This is real. Marco turned to me, his eyes filled with betrayal. You knew how I felt about her. You knew she was off limits. I did, I admitted, and I tried to stay away. For 2 years I tried. But last night when she came here, when she was crying in my hallway, I couldn't turn her away. And when she told me the truth, when she looked at me like I was the only person in the world who wouldn't lie to her, I couldn't do it anymore. She's my sister, Marco said hoarsely. You're my brother, practically. How am I supposed to? He couldn't finish the sentence. You're supposed to listen, Isabella interrupted. You're supposed to trust that I'm smart enough to know what I want, that I'm strong enough to handle the darkness, that I'm not the little girl you've been trying to protect anymore. Marco sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. This is wrong. On every level, this is wrong. Maybe, I said, sitting down across from him. Isabella remained standing between us. Or maybe it's the first honest thing that's happened in this family in years. Marco looked up at me. If you hurt her, if anything happens to her because of what you are, what we are, I'll kill you. I know, I said simply. And if she gets hurt because of me, you won't have to. I'll do it myself. The threat hung in the air, sincere on both sides. Then Isabella did something that surprised us both. She started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, but genuine amusement. Both of us stared at her. It's not funny, Marco said. Oh, but it is. She wiped her eyes. You're both so dramatic, talking about killing each other, making grand promises, when all I want is for the 2 people I love most in the world to figure out how to exist in the same room without testosterone poisoning. Despite everything, I felt my lips twitch. Marco caught it and shook his head, but I saw the ghost of a smile there too. You're handling this remarkably well, he said to his sister, considering your entire life just got turned upside down. I had a breakdown last night, Isabella replied. Got it out of my system. Now I'm just determined. I want this to work. I want us to be a real family, not one built on lies and protection and carefully managed ignorance, but one where we're honest with each other. Marco looked between us. And Robert, the engagement, is over, Isabella said firmly. I'll tell him today. I'll give back the ring. I'll apologize for wasting his time, but I'm not marrying him. Not for you, not for the family, not for any alliance. The Castellano deal, Marco started. We'll survive or it won't, I cut in. We'll figure it out. We always do. But Isabella is right. She's not a bargaining chip. She's family, and family doesn't get traded like assets. Marco was silent for a long time. Finally, he stood. I need time to process this, to figure out how I feel. I can't just, he gestured helplessly. I can't just be okay with this right now. We understand, Isabella said gently. Take the time you need, but know that I'm not changing my mind, and neither is Dante. Marco nodded slowly, then fixed me with a hard stare. The Volkov meeting still happens at 10. Can you separate business from personal for a few hours? I can, I confirmed. Good. He moved toward the elevator, then paused. Bella, he said without turning around. I love you. You know that, right? Everything I did. I know, she said softly. I love you too, Marco. That's why I'm trusting you to try to understand. He nodded and stepped into the elevator. The doors closed and he was gone. Isabella sagged against me, all the strength she'd shown draining away. That went better than I expected, she said. Better? I raised an eyebrow. He pulled a gun on me.
But he didn't shoot you, she pointed out. That's progress. I laughed despite myself, pulling her close. You're insane. You know that. Maybe, she agreed. But you love me anyway. I do, I said seriously. God help us both, but I do. The rest of the morning passed in a strange limbo. Isabella called Robert, and I could hear his angry voice through the phone even from across the room. She handled it with grace, returning his ring to his apartment by courier, cutting all ties cleanly. I prepared for the Volkov meeting, reviewing files and strategies, trying to focus on business, when all I wanted was to stay in this bubble with Isabella. But reality couldn't be avoided forever. At 9:45, I was dressed in one of my suits, all traces of the emotional night removed behind a mask of professional competence. Isabella kissed me at the door. Be careful, she said. Marco might have put the gun away, but that doesn't mean everyone will be happy about us. I know, I cupped her face. Stay here. Don't answer the door for anyone. I'll have security posted outside. I'm not a prisoner, she reminded me. No, I agreed, but you are precious, and I protect what's precious to me. The Volkov meeting took place at one of our neutral locations, a restaurant we owned in Midtown. Marco was already there when I arrived, along with 3 of our senior men. His face was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. The meeting itself was tense. The Bratva was pushing into our territory, testing boundaries, seeing what they could take. Decisions needed to be made about how to respond. Through it all, I was aware of Marco watching me, assessing. We'd worked together so long we usually moved like parts of the same machine. Today there was hesitation, uncertainty. After the others left, just the 2 of us remained in the private dining room. You were distracted, Marco said. That can't happen. I know. I poured 2 glasses of whiskey, sliding one across to him. It won't happen again. He didn't touch the glass. I've been thinking about what Bella said, about being honest. So I'm going to be honest with you now. I'm furious with you, Dante. Furious in a way I've never been. You violated my trust. You crossed a line I thought was sacred between us. I understand, I said, and I'm sorry. Not for loving her, but for the way it happened. For not coming to you first. You couldn't have come to me first, Marco said bitterly, because you knew what I would have said, that she's too good for this life, that you destroy her the way this world destroys everything pure it touches. Maybe I will destroy her, I admitted. God knows I've destroyed everything else I've touched, but maybe, just maybe, she'll be the thing that saves me instead. Marco finally picked up the whiskey, downing it in one swallow. She really loves you. Yes, and you love her. With everything I am. Marco closed his eyes. I spent 15 years trying to keep her separate from this world, from violence and blood and moral compromise. And in one night, you pulled her right into the center of it. No, I corrected gently. She walked into the center of it herself. I just didn't lie to her about what she'd find here. He was silent for a long moment. If this goes wrong, if something happens to her, it's on both of us, I finished. You for keeping her in the dark, me for showing her the truth. We both made choices. Now we live with them. Do you? Marco started, then stopped. Do you actually think you can keep her safe, in this life, with everything that's coming? I don't know, I answered honestly. But I'm going to spend every moment trying. And if I fail, if something happens to her because of what I am, then you have my permission to put a bullet in me, because I won't want to live in a world without her anyway. Marco studied me for a long time. Then finally he nodded. Okay. He stood. I'm not saying I'm happy about this. I'm not saying I approve. But Bella is right. She's an adult. She gets to make her own choices, even if those choices terrify me. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Don't thank me yet, Marco warned. We still have to deal with the Castellano situation. Robert's father is not going to be pleased about the broken engagement. Let me handle that, I said. I'll explain that it was my fault, that I interfered. The alliance can survive this. It has to. We parted ways outside the restaurant, Marco heading to check on some of our operations, me returning to the penthouse and Isabella. She was waiting when I got back, curled up on the sofa with a book. How did it go? She asked, setting it aside. Better than expected, I said, sinking down beside her. Marco is still angry, but he's trying to understand. Good, she nestled against me. Because I have some ideas about how I can help. Help, I raised an eyebrow. Isabella, you don't need to. I know I don't need to, she interrupted. But I want to. You said Marco kept me separate to protect me. Well, I don't want to be separate anymore. I want to be useful. I want to contribute. The thought of Isabella involved in our business made my blood run cold. But I'd promised honesty, and she'd proven she could handle more than any of us gave her credit for. What did you have in mind? I asked carefully. I'm an artist, she said. I have connections in the art world. Galleries, collectors, people with money and influence. That could be valuable. For laundering, reconnaissance, social engineering. I've been thinking about it all day. The possibilities. It could work, I admitted reluctantly. But Isabella, if you do this, there's no going back. Once you're in, really in, you can't pretend ignorance anymore. You become a target. I became a target the moment I walked through your door last night, she pointed out. At least this way I'm a target who can defend herself, who can be an asset instead of a liability. Over the following weeks, we settled into a new reality. Isabella proved herself more capable than anyone expected. Her connections opened doors we'd been trying to break down for years. Her keen eye for detail caught things we'd missed. Slowly, Marco came around. Not all at once, but gradually. He still glared at me sometimes when he saw me kiss his sister, still made comments about my unworthiness. But he also included her in meetings, asked her opinion, treated her like the intelligent, capable woman she was, instead of the little girl he'd been trying to protect. The Castellano situation was rockier. Robert's father demanded compensation for the broken engagement. We negotiated, made concessions, smoothed ruffled feathers. The alliance held, but barely. 3 months after that night at 3:19 in the morning, Isabella moved into the penthouse officially. Marco helped her pack up her old apartment, a gesture that meant more than words ever could. On moving day, as we carried boxes up to our home, Marco pulled me aside. You break her heart, he said quietly, and I really will kill you. I know, I replied, but I'm not going to. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of her. Marco nodded. See that you do. Then, with a slight smile, and for the record, I've never seen her happier. Take care of that. Always, I promised. That night, Isabella and I stood on the balcony, looking out over the city, the same view I'd been staring at when I first heard her crying. It seems like a lifetime ago, she said, reading my thoughts. That night, I showed up at your door. It was, in a way, I pulled her close. You destroyed the life I had, the carefully controlled existence, the emotional distance I maintained from everything. She looked up at me. Regrets. Not even one, I said, and kissed her. We married 6 months later. Small ceremony, just family and the closest members of our organization. Marco walked Isabella down the aisle, and when the priest asked who gave this woman, he said, She gives herself, but I support her choice. It was exactly right. Our life wasn't easy. The business was dangerous, the enemies numerous, but we faced it together. Isabella became my partner in every sense, my conscience when I lost my way, my strength when I faltered, my light in a world of darkness. And sometimes, late at night when we lay tangled together in the darkness, she'd trace patterns on my chest and whisper, I'm glad I came to your door that night, glad I found you when I was at my lowest, because you didn't try to fix me or save me. You just gave me truth. That's all I ever needed. Truth and love, I'd agree, kissing her forehead. Always love. Years later, when Marco's kids would ask how Uncle Dante and Aunt Bella met, we'd smile at each other. Isabella would say, I showed up crying at his door in the middle of the night, and I'd add, and what she whispered destroyed me, in the best possible way, because that's what love does. It destroys you, breaks down every wall, every defense, every carefully constructed lie you tell yourself. And from those ruins, if you're lucky, it builds something better, something true. I'd been a lot of things in my life, criminal, killer, king of an empire built on blood and fear, but the thing I was most proud of was being the man Isabella chose, the man who heard her crying at 3:19 in the morning and decided that some things were worth any cost. If you love this story and want to see more content like this, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more emotional and powerful stories. Thank you for watching, and until next time. She was worth everything. Every sacrifice, every risk, every moment of fear and doubt and danger. Because when she looked at me with those dark eyes full of love and trust, I saw reflected back not the monster I'd always believed myself to be, but the man I could become with her by my side. The man I wanted to be. For her. For us. For the future we were building together from the ashes of our shattered pasts. And that night, the 3:19 in the morning when I'd opened my door to find her broken and crying, had been the beginning of everything. The moment my carefully ordered world had cracked open to let in light. The moment I'd stopped being just Dante Corleone, Mafia boss, and started being something more, something human, something capable of love. Some people believe in fate, in destiny. in the idea that we're all moving toward predetermined ends. I'd never believed in any of that. In my world, you made your own fate through strength and cunning and ruthless determination. But Isabella made me reconsider, because what were the odds that she'd come to my door that specific night? That she'd choose me, of all people, to trust with her devastation? That we'd find in each other exactly what we needed to survive? Maybe it was fate, maybe it was luck, or maybe it was just two broken people finding each other in the darkness and deciding to be broken together until they could figure out how to be whole. Whatever it was, I was grateful for it. Grateful for every moment, every challenge, every beautiful, terrifying, perfect day with her. The Empire still demanded my attention. The Volkov situation required constant vigilance. New threats emerged regularly, but I faced them all with Isabella by my side. My partner, my equal, my redemption. Marco eventually not only accepted our relationship but championed it. He saw what I saw, that Isabella had found her place, not despite the darkness of our world, but within it. She brought light to it, perspective, humanity. She reminded us all that beneath the violence and the business and the constant struggle for power, we were still people, still capable of love and loyalty and sacrifice. And when our daughter was born 3 years after that fateful night, when I held that tiny, perfect life in my hands and looked up to see Isabella smiling at me with tears of joy streaming down her face, I understood finally what Marco had been trying to protect all along: innocence, hope, the possibility of something better. But I also understood that protection through ignorance was no protection at all. That real safety came from truth, from strength, from facing the world with eyes wide open and heart fully engaged. Our daughter would grow up knowing exactly who her parents were, what they'd done, the world they inhabited. But she'd also know she was loved unconditionally, that she had choices, that she could forge her own path. And when she was older, when she asked how her parents met, we'd tell her the truth. About the crying in the hallway, about the destroyed girl and the broken man, about how sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest dawns. The numbers 319 held special meaning for us after that. We'd glance at the clock and smile when it appeared, a reminder of the moment everything changed. The moment we stopped running from who we were and started running toward each other instead. Life in the Mafia was never simple, never safe, never easy. But with Isabella, it was worth every moment, every risk, every sacrifice, because she'd whispered her truth to me in that hallway, and it had destroyed me, destroyed my walls, my defenses, my carefully maintained distance from humanity. And from those ruins, we'd built something beautiful, something lasting, something worth fighting for. 20 years later, I still wake sometimes at 3:19 in the morning. I'll slip out of bed carefully, trying not to disturb Isabella, and stand at those same windows where I'd been standing the night she came to me. The city spreads below, mostly unchanged despite all that's happened. And I'll think about that night, about the broken girl crying in my hallway, about the choice I made to open the door instead of walking away. Best decision of my life, most dangerous, most costly, most absolutely, completely worth it. Isabella will join me sometimes, wrapping her arms around me from behind, pressing her cheek against my back. "You're thinking about that night again," she'll say. It's not a question, always, I'll admit, wondering what would have happened if I'd made a different choice, if I'd called Marco immediately, if I'd sent you away. "You wouldn't have," she'll say with certainty. "I know you, Dante Corleone. You're a lot of things, but you've never been able to walk away from someone who needs you, even when you should, especially when you should." And she's right. That's always been my weakness, or maybe my strength. Hard to tell sometimes where one ends and the other begins. The empire continues, our children grow, the family evolves. But through it all, through every challenge and triumph and setback and victory, Isabella remains my constant, my North Star, my reason for everything. People sometimes ask me if I regret the life I've lived, the violence, the moral compromises, the blood on my hands, and I tell them the truth. I regret many things, many choices, many moments I can never take back, but I don't regret opening that door at 3:19 in the morning. Don't regret loving Isabella. Don't regret building a life with her despite every reason it shouldn't have worked. Because she didn't just destroy me that night, she rebuilt me into something better, something worth being, and that's worth everything, worth any price, worth any cost. Some people spend their whole lives searching for meaning, for purpose, for something worth dying for. I found something better, something worth living for. Her name was Isabella. She came to my door crying at 3:19 in the morning, and what she whispered destroyed me completely. Best thing that ever happened to me. The absolute best thing. And I'd do it all again. Every moment. every choice, every risk, just to end up here, with her, building something beautiful from the ashes of everything we were. That's love. That's redemption. That's the truth that destroyed me and made me whole again. And every time the clock reads 3:19, whether morning or afternoon, I remember the sound of her crying, the look in her eyes when she asked me not to lie, the feeling of her hand in mine as we faced Marco together, the moment she said I love you for the first time, all of it, every precious, perfect, terrifying moment. And I'm grateful, so incredibly grateful, for fate, for luck, for whatever force in the universe brought her to my door that night. Because she saved me, just as much as I like to think I saved her. We saved each other, and that's the real story. Not about a mafia boss and his underboss's sister, but about two people who found each other in the darkness and chose to be each other's light. Thank you for joining me in this journey through Dante and Isabella's story. If this touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about love, redemption, and the choices that define us. Your support means the world. Until next time.